Hi, my name is Diana Burbano, and I'm one of the writers of the Zip Code plays at Antaeus Theatre. If you want to learn more, you can listen to this conversation. It's kind of a long story, of course, but I think just to make it short, I first fell in love with theater when I was pretty little. We were living in Buffalo, New York at the time, and there was a production of Tom Sawyer that I guess they took all of the kids from my school to go see. And I don't remember a thing about the actual show. I do remember exactly what the theater looked like and how beautiful it was and how I thought, what an amazing building. And the thing that really got me interested was watching the kids because it was a kids show, the kids who played Tom, Becky, and Huck were doing an audience talk back at the end of the show. And they were sitting on the edge of the stage looking so louche and so cool. And Tom was sucking on a lollipop and he was answering these questions. And I thought, that's amazing. And everybody's watching them and everybody's so interested in them because they've just pretended to be somebody else. And now they're these people. And I thought, this is pretty cool. So that's kind of where my interest started. Why did I have to be part of the, it's funny, Bill, I was just thinking about that because, I'm very lucky, knock wood. I'm very lucky. I have a lot of wonderful projects that happen, but I've been idly thinking to myself, what happens if I can't do the theater anymore? Like a lot of people are transitioning to other things. I have not done anything else with my life. I started performing semi-professionally at 12. I've been an equity actor since I was 19. This is literally all I do. And, I'm not trained to do anything else. I think I'm good at what I do. I love the theater. I love everything about it. Honestly, I don't think I'm capable of anything else, frankly. When did I fall in love with the writing? And I think the best part of that question is, when did it go from an interest to an obsession? I started to write I started to write when I got older. And I mean, the parts were never great for a Latinx woman. To be honest with you, I mean, if you really think about Latinx female parts in the canon, there's not that many. You can think of West Side Story maybe, and there's In the Heights now. There's so few that once you cycled through them, you kind of cycle through them again. And it became, and I love working in Latinx theater. I did a lot of that. I worked at places like the Bilingual Foundation of the Arts and Frida Kahlo Theater. I did a lot of theater in Spanish. But here's the thing. I'm of Colombian descent. I'm a Colombian immigrant. And I moved here to Los Angeles where the majority of the bilingual theater is actually Mexican. So I've spent most of my career when I was doing theater pieces, doing Mexican theater, which I absolutely love. And I always had a great time at it. I've worked with some fantastic people like Josefina Lopez. But there was always this thing in the back of my mind that, it wasn't necessarily my story, right? So I started to try and explore that. Like, what does it mean to be my story? And how do I exist in the world? How do I exist in this theater world? And really, you start looking at the pages that are written. There's really not that much, especially in like the bigger Lort theaters or any of the bigger theaters, which is where I made my career. There's not that much. I think I started to write and I was really enjoying it. And I think what really cemented it for me, though, was I was at a big theater at an opening night and there was a joke about a Latinx character. And the joke was, we call him Hose B because we already have the Jose. And after I practically blacked out. I hated that so much. And I got so angry. I thought, that's it. We're a joke. Our names are just a joke. That's all we are to you. And I couldn't take it anymore. So I really started writing in earnest. And I think my favorite thing is I did start writing for myself, but I stopped doing that. I write for other people so that other people have characters to play. And my favorite thing that I've ever done was right before the pandemic. I had one production and 2 staged readings where I employed 39 different Latinx actors in my work, which, is that right? 39? That sounds like a crazy number, but that's what's stuck in my head. And that was pretty intense. That was pretty, or maybe that was that quarter. That's what I did. And I thought, yeah, that's what I want to do. And they're playing parts that are not a joke to somebody. My process for creating and writing a play, usually it's just something I'm interested in. If I'm writing for myself, I've been, like I mentioned before, I've been extremely lucky that I've gotten a lot of commissions recently, and which has really helped me through the pandemic. So I don't have as much of a choice on the subject matter. I get sort of assigned subject matter or assigned something to write about. So in that instance, what I do is I research and I research and I research and I research, and I try to learn as much as I can about the subject matter. I occasionally outline if it's something I really don't know very much about. Like I got hired by Livermore Shakespeare Theatre to do a COVID play in the middle of, like, I got commissioned at the end of 2020, and I had to write it through 2021, which is weird because we were still in the middle of it. So that was kind of like, I have to figure out what this, I have to outline this play. I usually don't outline. I have an idea and I just start to write, and I write and I write and I write, and I let the characters just do whatever the characters do. And then I finish the play and I look at it and I say, there's no plot, which is inevitably what happens to me. I say, oh, there's no plot to this play. Great. So I go back and I try to figure out what is the plot of the play? What are the characters? Everything I yell at my students to do, I never do. I have to confess. I don't know what the point is. I don't know what they want. I'm not sure, the obstacles, but I do, once I have the draft, I can go back and kind of add that stuff in and strengthen what to me is the most important, which is the characters. Like, to me, that's where everything starts, is character foundation work. And then once I have my characters, and once the characters really know who they are, I can sort of go back and throw the obstacles at them and throw their needs and their wants at them. And it works. I mean, I think it's sort of an unconventional way to write plays, and I do get dinged for it occasionally, but that's how I like to write them. And I think that's, I don't know. I've tried to write, quote unquote, the well-made play. I can do it. I know what it looks like. I know what it's supposed to look like. And I know, but it always feels really conventional to me. And I don't know that I'm that interested in working in conventional form. I've known about Antaeus for many years. I mean, I've been in LA for so many years. And of course you can't, not that I would want to throw a rock. This is a terrible expression, but you can't throw a rock and not run into an Antaeus actor whenever you're at an audition. It's really a high level of work, I think. And the actors are interesting and well-trained and really exciting. And whenever I would see something, especially like at SCR, where I would love this actor, I'd look, and of course they would be a company member. I was invited to join their writers circle a couple of years ago, thanks to Sarah Tuft, who I met doing some work for the Dramatists Guild. And I really liked it. I liked the way they, I just like everything about the way they help playwrights and the way they nurture playwrights and the way they nurture their actors too. I feel like it's very humanistic, and it just feels like a very lovely atmosphere. So that's how I got into Antaeus. I like working with the Antaeus Writers Lab because the quality of the actors you get is so high that you, as the writer, can actually just concentrate on your work, because the one thing is, if an actor is too good, they can make anything sound fantastic. So in a way, it makes your life a little bit difficult as a writer, because if they're so good and you say, oh, well, that works. And then you take it away and you get another person in there who maybe doesn't have the same kind of experience, doesn't know how to hit beats or how to make transitions. So sometimes they're almost too good, really good. But what works, especially for a writer like me who loves to collaborate with actors, is that I don't have to tell them. Right. I try to put I don't like to put stage directions on the page anymore. I'm working really hard at like eliminating all stage directions, because I think it makes things unreadable for the readers. And if you want to get produced, you have to get people to read the whole thing. That's another thing I hammer my students about. I'm like, if in class we're stumbling to read your play all the time, because there's too many stage directions, or because for whatever reason, I don't say you have to change it, but you have to look at it, really look at it and say, is this what I want to put into the world? Because if we're stumbling and we know your work, how is somebody who doesn't know your work going to react when they see, you know, a page and a half of cross downstage left and go upstage? I can almost guarantee you never need stuff like that in a play. But because my point is, you get a really good actor in there and you just give them a monologue and you have no stage directions and they'll get it. They know how to work beat to beat. They know how to work moment to moment. They know how to find, their job is to find the through line and find the wants and find the objective. And your job as the writer is to give them the map. You can't be too prescriptive with an actor, right? I feel like that's something that a lot of writers are like, why is that actor doing my role? That actor is doing something terrible to my script. And I always think to myself, that's me. That's all on me. I'm the map maker. If my map is in good shape, the actor should be able to interpret it the way I want it to. And if he isn't, or she isn't, then it's on me to kind of go back and figure out how to make it a clearer map for them. So I've been aware of the zip code plays from the beginning, because I've been in the company since they started doing the zip code plays. I just think it's fantastic. I've always loved radio plays, radio drama. I still listen to old time radio drama whenever I can, you know, old Jack Benny and Dragnet. We listen to a lot of that because I just love the idea of listening to things. I actually get really exhausted watching plays on Zoom. I shouldn't say that, but it's true. So I generally don't watch and I just listen. And I get everything from just listening to it, even though there aren't any of the special effects or anything like that. I love listening to work. And so the zip code plays is all these beautiful little dramas and comedies, but it's all sonic, and it's just a place to breathe, I think. And it's so magical, and they've been so interesting. And the fact that it's all about LA, I mean, it's a complete hook for somebody like me who's lived in LA for so long. And I absolutely love it here. Even when I find it makes me a bit kooky. So my piece is Hollywood 90028 and Marie Dressler, good gal. Marie Dressler was she was a performer she was actually a performer for a very long time. She was in vaudeville before she was in silence, before she was on Broadway, before she was in the talkies. And she's one of few actors who actually made the transition from every level of that thread. I mean, she started in vaudeville, right? I mean, if you're a stage actor, you know, there's something about being on stage and the vaudeville, having to control an audience. I mean, especially if you've ever done children's theater, it's like you have to be so vivid and so alive and so like almost out there to control an audience like that. So Marie does that. And but somehow she also manages to transition to the smallest acting that you do, which is on stage in the talkies, you know. And she becomes a box office, #1 box office star. Now, the thing about Marie, she's not what you would call conventionally attractive. She was always a character woman. She was always considered sort of funny looking and always joked about the fact that she was ugly, that her father kicked her out of the house for being ugly. But audiences adored her. And for me, especially during the pandemic, especially as I'm looking at my career as an actor, which I still, you know, I have a massive love-hate relationship with, I just thought, to me, character actors are really special actors, right? A lot of the times they don't get the same kind of accolades. They don't get remembered. They're maybe less of the history. But the character actors are the ones who make the movies. They bolster the leads. They carry the plot. They move the story along. They tend to be the ones that the audience can connect with more than these beautiful, glamorous movie stars who are in the center. It's the character actors. I've always thought that. And so I wanted to write about this particular character actor because I've always loved her. I've always loved that period of time. I've always loved early movies. And because the zip code plays are about Hollywood and about Los Angeles, I proposed that as a way to, you know, let's look at our history, you know, because sometimes we in LA are like, we don't have history. Well, we do. I mean, I could go on forever. The history of Los Angeles and the movies is so interesting to me. In 1910, when it was D.W. Griffith did the first silent short here, I think it was called The Old Californian. It was a 17-minute short. That was in 1910. And then by 1914, Cecil B. DeMille makes a full-length movie. And then by 1918, it's a conglomerate. It's like 8 years. 8 years is when Hollywood became Hollywood. And there's just so much about that period to mine and to look at and to poke around in that I've always just been excited by it. I was thrilled when they said, yeah, write about that, write about early Hollywood through the character of Marie Dressler. The main story arc of Marie Dressler, Good Gal, it's about this character actress, Marie, and she is filming a movie. She's come into her dressing room to take a break, and she is she's talking about her life. It's very much sort of a biography. She just goes through what I just mentioned about the early Hollywood, about being a vaudevillian actor, about how she feels about it. And there's a secret that's revealed at the end about why she's compelled to tell you this. And Marie, it's a one-person piece. It's a monologue, and in it, Marie is looking for an ear, looking to leave some of herself behind, looking to make sure that people remember who she is. The main actress in this piece is Julia Fletcher, who is a really fantastic character actor with an amazing sort of smoky voice. And I think she wasn't doing an imitation of Marie, but she embodied the things that I most loved about Marie, which is the humor, the self-deprecating humor, the self-knowledge, but also like the self-worth that Marie had. So Julie was incredible in the part. My director, Cameron Watson, shared with me a love of old Hollywood. And I think that's where we sort of bonded right away, is that Cameron and I could talk about old Hollywood, I think, for a really long time. And I hope someday I can actually meet him in person and we can sit across from each other and just gab about all the stuff we love about Hollywood history, because I would love that. But it was just a treat to have somebody who really knew that subject matter direct it, because you could feel the love in the direction. And I do have to say that the most incredible thing was our sound. I think one of the strengths of the Zip Code plays too is Jeff Gardner, who does all the sound. It's a masterclass in how to build a set sonically and to bring the audience into a space when they can't see it, and it isn't really described, is it? You only hear it, and it's such a masterful thing to be able to do, to create a world just with noise and sound and music. And I think my piece is fairly simple, but it's so clear and so in the period, which was important to me and to the piece. You know, the actress smokes cigarettes, the walking shoes it's a certain kind of shoe that she wears. So when she walks, you really hear that. There's a certain kind of a sound that the movies used to make when the lights came on that they don't make anymore. All that is in the piece. And I think it really just enhances, for me, and I hope for the audience, that feeling of you're in a different time. Going from normal playwriting to writing a radio play, I loved it. I've actually, this is my second one. I wrote one called The Vertical City, which was a science fiction piece for Actors Repertory in Portland. I really like the form. I like everything about it. I like the fact that it takes a lot of imagination. Like, the audience has to work as hard as the actors do, in a way, to make the world come true. And one of the things that I love the most about it is that, unlike seeing a play on stage, it's never the same for two people, right? One person imagines one thing, another person imagines another thing. They imagine what it looks like just in their heads. I love that. I love that it's not, I've always loved that I don't have full control about how people either interpret or hear my work, because I think the magic of an audience is their participation in the work. I would love the audience to, once they've heard the play and they're maybe driving on, maybe I would love for them to just sort of remember the character actors. Just think about them. Maybe not only Marie, but also all the other ones who are great contributors to movies that you've loved. There's just so many people. And the thing about actors, theater actors more than movie actors, but even movie actors, because I've done a lot of research about, there are so many people who have been in movies and we forget them, right? It's such a transitory thing to be an actor. You don't have the same, you don't leave anything behind. And I know it seems like you do. There's a lot of movies where people do leave things behind, but there's also so many movies that nobody watches anymore that have been lost. Even recent movies have been lost and don't exist. So for me, it's always like the little, that whole Clarence gets his wings thing, where if you think of an old character actor and it makes you go and look them up and maybe see if you can find one of those movies, then I think I've done my job. I would say if you're interested in the story of Marie Dressler, that you should go out and check some of her movies, especially Min and Bill and, oh my gosh, the Garbo movie, and Anna Christie. There's some really wonderful work going on in there. And it's always fun. Sometimes you think your students don't even go as far back as maybe The Graduate or maybe even The Godfather, golly, maybe even Working Girls sometimes, but it's always worth to go back and look at other things and look at what other people were doing. You learn so much from watching actors. What do I look forward to when I listen to Zip Code plays? I love being immersed in story. And I love just taking a moment for myself, taking the time for myself to listen to something wonderful. And I'd much rather do that. And to be honest, I'm in the car so much that the plays like the Zip Code plays just make it easy to get from one place to another, because I'm in another world, but I can still drive. People should listen to the Zip Code plays to get a slice of the Los Angeles life and to learn more about Los Angeles writers, something that I'm incredibly passionate about. I feel like here we don't support our own writers. And so it's really wonderful to listen and hear what Los Angeles writers are capable of. I think it's a really talented and brilliant community, and definitely could use more support from the public. The question is, why should there be more stories from the community in the theater world? And the answer to that is, it's because that's real life. I mean, I think a lot of the times we've sort of bought a bill of goods that a certain thing that we see in the theater is actually how the world is, but it's exclusionary to a lot of people who don't see themselves on stage. For example, I never saw myself on stage, not really, not ever really. So, I mean, I'm not Anita from West Side Story. I'm not Puerto Rican. You know, I'm not that person. I'm not that that story. And I'd love for your audience to really think about how many actual Latinx characters in the theater they know of and that they can think of, and then go ahead and think about the same, like think about characters that you know that aren't Latinx, and just look at the disparity in that. And we're a huge population, and we deserve our stories to be told, and we just deserve them to be told by the bigger theaters, all the theaters. And that goes for the Asian community, that goes for, of course, the Black community, that goes for the indigenous community, which even more than the Latinx community has been erased completely from the theatrical narrative. It's elitist and it's wrong. And the fact that, I mean, I love me some Shakespeare, but he's not the only one, you know, who created theater. And if you always go back to the same well, you're missing out on a lot of stories. And sometimes just putting BIPOC actors in stories and thinking, oh yeah, well now they've got their story. It's not the same. It's not the same. I mean, imagine if you didn't have any stories out there that sounded like you, know, it becomes very, very lonely. And you think, I don't exist. It becomes an existential crisis of, but I'm here. Why does everybody think I don't exist? I mean, God knows it's ridiculous in film and television. If I have to see another like Narcos or as an interpretation of what a Latino is meant to be, I'll scream. The Antaeus Theater Lab is important for the Los Angeles theater community because it nurtures and grows Los Angeles playwrights who deserve a bigger platform and who deserve to be heard and who are just as interesting and just as exciting as anything going on in New York. And I would wager to say every region of the country has very exciting playwrights that should be supported by their home theaters as opposed to importing everything from New York. I love New York. I think New York's fantastic, but there are great regional works going on all over the country, all over the world. And it becomes again, we're just back to sort of elitism and only one thing is good. I just think that a lab like this allows different kinds of stories to be told. Why would I tell other playwrights and actors to be involved with Antaeus Theatre Company? It's really high quality work. It's a very nurturing environment. It's fun to work with really high level actors and writers. It's a little bit like, you play tennis with a better tennis player, you're going to become a better tennis player yourself. Places like Antaeus Theatre Company are local theater companies for the community. And I think it's important that we have the voices that are right in there in the community for people to go and access and see. I mean, if we don't support our smaller theaters, then we will lose a pretty important voice. And because the smaller theaters are the ones producing more diverse playwrights and more diverse stories you're not going to see on the main stages, stories by women. So if you cut off the small theaters, you're going to cut off a lot of voices. So they're always worth your support. And I would say, even as an audience member, you can get involved, you can get involved. You can start, come be an usher, come work the box office, and then decide you want to write something, go take an acting class. I tell everybody to take an acting class. Not only will it be the most fun you'll have in your life, and you'll meet some wonderful people, you might spark something. And I love acting. I love theater. It's really fun. It's just a fun thing to do. I won't lie. So maybe it's not the most noble or, we're definitely not curing COVID, but we are bringing joy to ourselves, which sounds a little bit selfish, but I wager that a lot of us could use a little bit of joy right now. Hi, everybody. I'm Diana Burbano, and I am the playwright for the zip code plays 90028, Marie Dressler, Good Gal. And I just want to invite you all to take a listen to the play and to listen to all 3 seasons. I think you'll find them really exciting. And as a matter of fact, we've been up for an audio award for Best Podcast. So we're all super, super excited about that. And I think you will be too. See you at the theater.